Yo, Trevor, you know what day it is?
Yes, sir. It's Tuesday, Jay.
Well, hey, you know what that means.
I believe that means it's time for Tuesdays with Trevor.
All right, well, hey, hit the music because it's time to get this thing rolling, man. Let's go.
All right. Hello, and welcome to Tuesdays with Trevor, a show dedicated to using sports to create positive change. Be ready to get inspired, uplifted, and empowered through thought-provoking conversations specific to the world of youth sports with some of the top minds in the game. I'm your co-host, Trevor Rosenthal, MLB All-Star and single-season save record holder for the St. Louis Cardinals, along with Jason Holzer, co-founder of 40 Athletes and best-selling author. Jason, how are we doing today?
Hey, man, doing great today. Excited to be here. Excited to have Joel Goldberg with us on today. Just a great human being, and excited to have him on the show today. What about yourself, man? How you doing?
Same. Doing really well. The weather is good here in Texas. I'm missing the Midwest. I know it's a little bit bipolar right now, but our guest today is going to bring me back home. I grew up in Kansas City. Grew up watching the Kansas City Royals, and then eventually in 2020 was actually able to play for my hometown team, where I was able to connect and spend a little bit of time with Joel, of course, at a distance during that time. But it's so fun to have him on today, and excited to jump in the conversation.
Yeah, I think, I actually probably met Joel about the same time because that was a COVID connection myself. And, we have a great blend of Cardinals Royals today. Joel started off there in St. Louis, went west, went to Kansas City. So he's the current Royals TV broadcaster, been there for, almost over 15 years now. And he wrote a really great book called Small Ball, Big Results. And Joel, thank you for joining us today. And I'd really like to dive in right now to your book. Like, what inspired you to write it? And then also, what are the things that, an audience of like parents, youth coaches, youth athletes, I know you have a lot of great stories of you with some pro athletes in there and some of the things that you went in, dove deep on some of those things, but how can that be applied at the younger levels too?
It really could be, I think, applied to everybody. I'll first start by saying this, that I will spend more time face-to-face, virtually at least, on this podcast right now with Trevor than I did in his time with the Royals. And that's not to suggest that the time was short. In the scheme of 60 games, you were there for, a good chunk of the season. But that's the weirdest and worst year ever because I never once stood face-to-face with one player. I'm willing to bet that I have never covered an all-star on a team that I am with at such a distance as I did Trevor Rosenthal because it's almost like I felt like we never worked together. It's the weirdest thing. But anyway, I digress, but it's fun to be able to do this right now. I think, to me, Jason, Small Ball, Big Results, the book came about. I started a speaking career about 7 years ago. I was probably like everybody else. I'd love to write a book. I don't know what I'm going to write a book about, but I should write a book, and I'm never going to write a book. And then the pandemic hit, and, I was out of work for the bulk of the season. We did 60 games instead of 162. And so it seemed like that was the right time to double down on relationships, to be able to network virtually every day, and to work on this book. And so that was what it was. And then as far as what is small ball, it really came up because I covered a Royals team that was the Cinderella story, the small market that won a World Series in 2015, back-to-back World Series in 14 and 15. They weren't the big name team. They weren't the big home run hitting team. They did it by doing the little things. And so in baseball, small ball is the bunts and the sacrifices and all that type of stuff. But I would argue in baseball terms that there is small ball for pitchers too. It's the PFP. It's the side sessions. It's all of that. And then in real life, small ball to me, no matter what you do, no matter how old you are, no matter what your role is, small ball, it's the little things that end up leading to the big results. It's the little things that make you go every single day.
My mom, whenever I was a kid, she put a quote of Craig Counsell whenever he was playing for the Florida Marlins, and it said, little things make a big difference. And so whenever just by saying that, I was like kind of reminded of that. But yes, thanks for sharing.
It is, but they are. They can be life skills too. Everything that I wrote about in the book, which, I'm lucky enough to have met the greatest of athletes in all my years of doing this. This will be year number 17 with the Royals. It'll be year number 14 with Salvador Perez. I was lucky enough to have 7 years with an Albert Pujols in St. Louis. The list goes on and on, but the common theme is that these guys, whether they're the greatest of all time, Pujols is the best hitter that I ever covered, or whether it's I don't know, I'll use your Cardinals, David Eckstein, who you wouldn't walk by on the street and say that guy is a World Series MVP, to the guy that just got a cup of coffee, the reliever, the situational lefty. There's not as much of a thing anymore. That would hang in the bullpen with Trevor. That in the grand scheme of history, came in and pitched in 30 or 40 games, and you might not remember him, but every single one of those people do the little things well. And it's what ends up leading them. I'll put it to you this way. I have very rarely, even in a day and age of launch angle and everybody swinging for the fences, which I hate, but that's just the world that we're in. I've never interviewed a player in my live interview after the game with the guy saying, yep, I was trying to do that. They almost always say, I wasn't trying to hit a home run, but it happened. Why did it happen? Because they did the little things right.
Oh, I love that. You're just speaking my language. I mean, I was so fortunate, like you mentioned, these big name guys. When I came into the St. Louis Cardinals clubhouse for the first time, there was the Chris Carpenters and the Lance Berkmans, the Jake Westbrooks, and just so many guys who at the time when I met him had achieved all the things in the world that they could possibly have achieved, and they were like gold statues to me in my eyes. And that's one of the things that stood out early in spring training. We're doing PFPs, like you mentioned, and these guys have a ferocious intensity with what they're competing at in this simple drill. And I'm watching them and asking them questions, and they're setting the example of you never know what situation you're going to be in, and doing the little things to the best of your ability. The things that you can control are ultimately going to be that edge that you have when times get tough or you get into that big situation. And that rubbed off on me. And that's something that I've continued to try and pass along to the next generations of players, whether they're professional athletes or high school kids or younger. We have some kids in the neighborhood that I spend time with in the evenings throwing the ball around. And it's just constantly telling them about doing the little things to the best of your ability. And I'm not sure if they believe me, but at least I'm encouraging them. And so I would like to get your input. Sometimes it's hard in those situations for athletes to feel like they matter because there's a variety of roles, whether you're in the bullpen or you're that left-handed reliever, or you might just have the cup of coffee. Maybe you're not the World Series MVP, but we all know a team is a multitude of parts that have to come together in order to win. So what are some of the things that parents can do to help support their child in a role that they play on their teams?
I think that's basically it right there, Trevor, is that I think we're all wired to want to be the star. Now, at least I'm talking about in terms of athletics, because, look, there are a lot of people, take in my world in television. Nothing that we do happens. I'm going to put this in baseball terms because I'm going to trust that most of the people that are listening because of your guys' love of baseball and kids and everything like that. And I always think everything relates very well back to baseball. But from a TV standpoint, we're nothing without our TV crew. Now, does the average person really know what it looks like to be a television producer or director or an associate producer, graphics designer, all of that? No. What they do know is that when those things don't work, our broadcast doesn't look very good. All they see is the end result, which is what I'm doing. So, I'm the end result of small ball. By the way, it's a strikeout a lot of times too. I mean, I don't get it right every single time, and a lot of times that's just me. But my point is that those people in the truck aren't necessarily looking for the attention. I'm not saying I'm looking for the attention, but Trevor, you know this. If you're in front of the camera, if you're on the mound, you're going to get the attention. But athletes all want to be stars. And I think that if those parents, when those kids are younger, can help them, their kids, and themselves for that matter, embrace the role and embrace the fact that not every kid on the team is going to be a star, that's going to set them up for life. Because I think, think about as parents, we're always saying, well, our kid should have played more. Our kid should have been able to do this. My kid's better than that kid. I get it. I was there. I did that myself. And you know what? In the end, they kind of end up where they're supposed to be. And unless that role athletically is the superstar, then there's a really good opportunity when they're young to be able to teach them and yourself and everyone around you about what a good teammate can be. And being one of the best teammates doesn't have to be the biggest superstar. And the people that stay around the game long enough, and when I say game, I don't just mean sports, I mean any profession. The people that stay around the longest, unless you are Albert Pujols, unless you are the biggest superstar, if you're Salvador Perez or Albert Pujols or Mike Trout or whatever, fill in the blank, Bobby Witt Jr., great. You're going to stay around forever, whether you're the best person, the worst person, or anybody in between. But most of us don't have that luxury. And so we got to get all those little things right. And when we can embrace those roles, Trevor, you know this, the best utility guys, the best veteran presences in locker rooms, if they're not stars, are guys that have proven are going to embrace that role and add value to their team. And if you could teach your kid that from a sports standpoint, it's going to play out in life, out of sports. Unless you think that your kid's going on to be a big leaguer, an NBA player, or whatever, at some point they're going to go into the what I call the quote-unquote real world. And this is a great lesson for them.
What about coaches too? Because a lot of times coaches, you need people to fill spots in every role, but getting kids to buy into the things that you set aside for them, what are some coaches can do to help them athletes feel excited about the role, about how their role matters, about how much they're contributing, even if they're not the superstar, but maybe you're basketball, maybe you're the kid that sets the great screen, or you get the defensive stop, or whatever it is. What are some tips on that for coaches to help sell the role for other players as well?
You sell it as much as you value it. If you're not going to value that role, if you're not going to express and articulate the importance of that role, then how can you expect your kids to embrace that? If you're going to put all of your attention on the superstars, and I get it, look, superstars are always going to get extra treatment. I have no problem with that. There was a different set of rules from Tony La Russa with Albert Pujols than there was for others. I get it. If you don't have your superstar on board, you're not going to get everybody else. And so, but you can't ignore everybody else. And I think that if those coaches out there can embrace the role that little Jimmy has as the guy on the bench, that I need you to be that positive influence. I need you to help pick these guys up. I need you to be the best backup this. I need you to be great at defense because we are going to need you later in the game. I need you to be able to go out there and get that left-hander out, and it's important. We're not going to win without you. And so I think it's such a simple piece of advice that, yes, the stars deserve all the attention, but you can make those role players feel really important. And that's all anyone wants. We all just want to be validated, no matter what our role is. We all just want a little pat on the back. Everybody's different. Some people need to be coddled a little bit. Others need to have you in their face, whatever it is. It's probably more the former nowadays. That's not a knock on the current upcoming generation. That's just where we're at in terms of society. And so that's the other piece of advice, Jason, to coaches, which, oh, by the way, is also true for leaders and bosses and people in the real world, is that don't treat everybody the same. Treat everybody with the same respect, yes, but understand that people are wired differently. They're motivated differently. And when you get to know them and you build trust with them, trust is a big chapter in my book. When you build that trust with them, they'll do anything for you if you value them, if you're willing to listen to them, and if you're willing to pay attention to them.
I love that. And, I think for you, me looking at you, it's you're a guy who I look at it inspiration to see what you're doing. I mean, you're writing a book, you're doing public speaking, you're on TV every day. I mean, that stuff is easy as you make it look. Those are big time accomplishments, and you're continuing to get better. And with the seat that you sit in the broadcast booth, you're up close and personal. You've seen just as many games, probably more games than I've seen, and this what I'm about to talk about. I've experienced this where at the top of the game, at the top level in the Major League Baseball, the gap in talent is very small, and what I've seen is the teams that can show up, be positive, bring the energy, and put in really just more effort, a lot of the times have that competitive edge. And this is something that recently when I went to a 13U game to help coach this team, I was kind of preaching this to them, and I'm getting these stares back. I'm looking at these 13-year-old eyeballs, and they're staring at me like I got two heads. And I'm telling them, I'm like, I'm serious, guys. We got to show up. We got to bring the energy. We got to bring our best effort, because that is what we do at the top level, and that's going to be the separator in what we want to achieve. and what might not achieve, and to see what you're doing, getting on stage, getting in the broadcast booth. You've applied this in your life, but you've also seen it firsthand. So, I mean, I'm just interested, what suggestions you might have for parents that could make youth sports a positive and valuable experience, and not just focused on the winning and the scoreboard at all times. But maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, there are a million directions that my mind goes on this, Trevor. And I think, I mean, the first thing, none of this happens overnight. And so there's a little something, I know it's overused for kids, parents, and everybody of embracing the journey. And if you're doing all these little things right, let me go back to one thing. If you are Bobby Witt Jr., okay, if you believe that one day you're going to be good enough to sign a $289 million, let's just do this. Let's just say that a lot of parents out there think, you know, if all this goes right, maybe he can get a college scholarship. Most parents think that. Not all. Most people, most that'll be listening to this are thinking, if you just do all this right. Okay, that doesn't speak to me. First round draft pick, big signing bonus, right? So you're probably like most people. You have the occasional people, the Trevor Rosenthals of the world, that maybe you're at a little bit of a higher level. I'm not saying you're Albert Pujols, Trevor, but look, there are people that you know early on that you're saying like they could be in the big leagues one day. But you weren't a high draft pick either, so I think you're still much more representative of a realistic dream, even if it is still a little bit of a lottery ticket. But most people are going to be that lottery ticket. And so, okay, if you want to pursue those dreams along the way, that's great. But understand that most of us, myself included, are not the first round draft pick. We are not Bobby Witt Jr. We are not the second overall pick that's then going to sign for a $289 million contract at 23 years old. If we could just put that as a fantasy and leave it as that, let's talk about reality and the real world. And I think that the beauty is that when you're open-minded, you know, we hear about this a lot with sports too. Don't just play one sport, play everything. I'll take that to more in life. When you are open-minded to everything that is out there, those branches will start to grow and send you in different directions. All I wanted to do growing up was to be on TV talking about sports. First of all, and I tell this to audiences, pregame and postgame shows didn't exist when I was growing up. There certainly weren't podcasts, and there's no way I was going to think about getting on stage to talk about the lessons that I learned. So almost everything that I'm doing right now is completely unexpected, even though I'm living my dream. I'm just living a different version and even a better version of my dream. But then if you go back a little bit, like I know what I do on TV is a big deal, but it doesn't feel like it to me. I don't take it for granted. I truly, every day that I'm at the ballpark, this is cheesy, but it's true. When I walk onto that field, Trevor, you know this, Jason, you do too. There's not a stadium in baseball, even the worst of stadiums, where you walk out onto the yard, so to speak, and it's the most pristine, perfectly manicured. The worst of the 30 stadiums in baseball still has the most perfectly manicured grass. And so I always want to feel that. You know, I always want to feel that grass when I walk out there and think there are so many people that are going to be up in those stands tonight that would trade places with me, and they don't even have to play the game, and they would love it. So I don't want to ever take it for granted, but I've done this so long now that I could do it in my sleep. And that doesn't mean that I don't have bad shows and bad moments and screw ups and occasionally moments that'll keep me up up at night. Very rarely now, because you learn in this business, just like baseball, to move on from failure and move on to the next day. So that's the shows all blend together. I've probably done 5,000 shows in Kansas City between pre and post game show. It's riding a bike. But I bring that up, guys, because the speaking business, I'm only in it 7 years. It's not a little side hustle now. It's full business. I'm getting on stage to speak to all types of groups. I don't really get nervous, but I'm not comfortable yet. So I'm past the nervous stage, but I'm still at that stage where I'm like, do I belong here? They're telling me I do. Am I good enough? You know, Trevor, tell me if I'm wrong about steps along the way in the minor leagues and into the big leagues. Do I really belong here? I think I belong here. They're telling me I belong here. I'm not really sure. And so my point to all of that is that this journey will take you in different directions. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try new things. And the more you try, the more versatile you make. Become the utility guy in life. Become that super utility guy. because when you become valuable in the way you treat people, the different things that you can do, sky's the limit. And it's going to be challenging along the way. You got to step out of your comfort zone. There are a lot of things still that make me uncomfortable, but I keep seeing it's like a growth chart. You look back and you're like, oh, I was here and now I'm here. It just doesn't feel like it. I don't even know if I answered your question, but there you go.
I want to bring forward what you talked about a little bit earlier about, you mentioned trust earlier. And I think one of the big problems in youth sports is that coaches and parents are at a disconnect because they don't trust each other, right? Parents think coaches don't make the right decisions. Coaches think parents are crazy, all this kind of thing. But what I've done is I've actually, as a coach, learned to actually go and build relationships with parents so that way they better understand, what my goals are for their kid. And so, can you talk about the importance of, as coaches, building trust with parents, getting to know parents, and helping them understand their situation? How can that really help you enjoy coaching and actually make you a better coach because you have an idea and you actually include parents as opposed to just try to push them to the side and just kind of let them, like, hey, I'm coach, your parent, and stay in our lanes?
Trust to me is the most important aspect of everything we do in life. Unless we're in a world where we're not working with anyone, for anyone, whatever it is. If you're on some kind of team or building a business, even if it's your own business, but you got clients, whatever it is, internally, externally, personally, trust is everything. I mean, I'm not doing anything serious with anyone that I don't have trust with, or at least I'm not doing it as authentically. So I'll just take it to my world, and then I'll put it in the coach's world too. If we're getting back to what I was just mentioning to Trevor about not getting nervous, comfortable on TV, all that type of stuff, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal because the guys treat me with the utmost respect. I'm not in the fraternity. I don't ask to be in the fraternity. When guys like Alex Gordon say, hey, you were always one of us, I take that seriously, but I also understand that I'm one of us doesn't mean that I'm one of the players. It means that they trust me. And I could give that away in a moment. And so what trust has done for me, look, people that are listening to this or watching this that have watched our broadcasts, some are going to think I'm great at what I do. Some may not think I'm very good at all. That's all subjective. That's all style. I like his style. I don't like his style. Trevor remembers back to Jason, you're a Cardinals fan. Jim Hayes is a guy that I worked with forever. We could not be more opposite in styles. He's goofy. He wants to get people on edge. He's looking for the sarcasm in everything. That's not me. And so some people may love him. Those same people may not like me, or maybe they like both of us. I don't know. But what I do know is that I can control the ability to get respect from others by the way that I go about things. And so, I'm walking into clubhouses every day, and that's not my house. That's their house. And so I understand that every moment that I'm in there, I want to play by their rules, which means not the actual rules you're allowed to do. When's a good time? When's a bad time? How can I not get in your way? How can I support you? And I bring all those up because those are the little things that I work on in and out of season every single day. If one of our players gets married in the off season, I'm going to send them a little note on Instagram and say, hey, congrats. If somebody passes away in the family, I want to make sure that I reach out and then get out of the way. And so my point to those coaches is that trust is an everyday thing. And look, every coach knows at that level, dealing with parents is not the easiest of things. It can become easier when you build that trust every single day. And some of it's just subtle. Some of it's just supportive. Some of it, I build trust sometimes by just commenting on a player's Instagram or tagging them in a post so that they could share that back home to Venezuela. Just the little subtle things that you could do every single day that make people feel good and that humanize them and yourself. And suddenly you have a little something to talk about. I think that if those coaches aren't working on building trust with the players and the families, they're doing themselves a disservice.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on. You answered my question perfectly, but you're hitting on so many important pieces that apply in so many different areas. And like you said, when I was going up to the minor leagues and first getting into the major leagues, you have this imposter syndrome of like, I'm just a normal guy. I don't know if I belong here. And at the end of the day, I think we all feel that way. Well, we all put on our pants the same way and get out of bed and go about our business with the same tenacity. And sometimes the bright shines a little lighter, and sometimes we're behind the curtain. But either way, everything that we're doing is equally as important, and especially when we have the opportunity to interact with somebody else and build somebody else up. I mean, that's what it's all about. So I love that you're sharing that with us today. It's been great to have you on, Joel. I mean, like I said, you're inspiring, and to have you pull back the curtain a little bit of the steps that you've taken to gain that success. These are all tangible things that anybody can use, parent, athlete, child, professional. It doesn't matter if you're 40, 50 years old. These little things are going to make immediate difference in your life, and you're going to get results from it. So I think that's what your book hits on. So be sure to check out Joel's book, Small Ball, Big Results. And we really appreciate you again coming on today. Good luck this season. We're looking forward. There's a good thing going on in Kansas City right now, and even the AL Central. I mean, there's some teams that are putting some good stuff together. So I'm excited to watch this baseball this year.
I'm excited for it too, and I'm always excited for baseball, right? I mean, when have you ever heard a team in spring training say, "Yeah, we're not going to be good this year"? And so this is the best time of year, no matter 1 through 30, where everybody is thinking, if this guy stays healthy and this guy stays healthy and this works out and he figures it out, that maybe this will be our year. So it's a great time of year, and the grind will begin soon. So it's good. It's good to be able to spend time with both of you guys. And yeah, Trevor, now we've exceeded the amount of time we spent together in 2020.
That's a great win right there. Yeah. Well, Trevor, hey man,
guys.
Great show as always. Yeah, thank you, Joel, and we appreciate you coming on and joining us and sharing what you got. Trevor, great show as always, man, and we're excited to keep rolling. Who else we got coming up? I mean, Joel, man, he really put us he was like our 3-hole hitter, man. He was like came in, knocked some runs in here. Who we got cleaning up and down the lineup coming down here?
Yeah, you could tell Joel has done this before. This isn't his first rodeo. He could I believe him. He could probably do this in his sleep. He might be sleeping right now. Who knows? It's early here. So no, we got some exciting guests coming on. One I'm particularly excited about with a former MLB player, manager, Clint Hurdle. I had the pleasure of playing across the diamond from Clint Hurdle for years in the NL Central with the St. Louis Cardinals while he was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he's done tremendous things, not only in the game, but in his personal life as well, and sharing the good news and trying to help people along the way. And he's been an inspiration for me. I mean, he's taken some challenges in his life and turned them into great things and made a positive impact along the way. So I'm excited to have him come on. Jason, what are you excited about?
Yeah, we also got Super Bowl champion chef Matt Powers, who is the chief executive chef of the Chiefs, coming on to really talk about nutrition, things you can do quickly to get a healthy meal in or a healthy snack in before or after a game. I know youth sports is a very got to get to this game, got to get to this practice, got to get here, got to get there. So he's going to come on and really share with us some simple tactics on things he does with the Chiefs whenever they're in a hurry that you could do at home as well. So that's going to be a really fun conversation to talk with him about some of those things you can do from a nutrition standpoint.
Awesome. Well, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as share your comments. Let us know what you would like us to talk about. We got some really dynamic content coming your way, and we're excited to continue to share the power of sports and the intangible skills that we can apply in our own lives and in the lives of future athletes to help make that difference. So make sure you check us out. Check out 40athletes.com. Great resources for parents, coaches, and athletes. Follow Jason and 40 Athletes on social media. And tune in next time to Tuesdays with Trevor.
Yeah, man, that's a wrap. And hey, make sure you follow Trevor on social media and Joel as well. Thanks again, Trevor. Great episode. And we'll see you on next episode on 2 minutes remaining. Sorry, Tuesdays with Trevor next Tuesday.
Awesome.